Today we're going to be comparing the 14T Pro to the S24 FE here, and this is a comparison that a lot of people have been requesting. So let's go ahead and dive in and see what this is all about here. I do want to go ahead and start off with the price point of these two phones. The S24 FE, it is definitely not a cheap phone, and I mean neither of these are cheap phones. You can find it for brand new $550 in the used refurbished marketplace. You know, it'll be a little bit cheaper. And then the 14T Pro here is going to cost you around $673 in the USA. Yeah, so $673 in the USA. Now it is going to be cheaper overseas is what I'm being told by my subscribers, so do take that into consideration that if you're in another country, this phone will be a little bit cheaper. So these phones are, you know, being compared quite a bit. Now let's go ahead and talk about the hardware here. So both of these phones have a premium design. They're both glass and metal phones here. You got massive cameras on the 14T Pro. A lot of people don't like the design. You know, I said when I first saw the renders, I didn't like it either, but in person, it is a pretty nice looking phone here, and they both look great. It really comes down to your personal preference here. You do have a kind of glossy back on the S24, and you have kind of like a matte finish, which I can still kind of see fingerprints on this one too. This one I actually can't see fingerprints because of the color. But yeah, the overall hardware is pretty nice on both of these. They are very comfortable. They're both IP68 dust and water resistant here. And yeah, as far as the build quality, I think they both do a pretty solid job here. But they are definitely, you know, on the bigger side when it comes to phones. So just do note that for my people with smaller hands. Let's talk about these specs a little bit more. On the S24 FE, you do have the Exynos 2400E processor, 128 gigs of internal storage, 8 gigs of RAM on board. With the 14T Pro, this phone, it does have the Dimensity 9300 Plus processor on here, and the base model, well, this model in particular is 512 gigabytes and 12 gigs of RAM. So overall, you can see the Geekbench scores are pretty similar. Now this one is running Android 15. I just got the update, and then the S24 FE, it will get Android 15 probably in another month or two. Samsung actually is, to me, kind of late. So as far as speed, I do want to do a full speed test with these two phones, but just know that they are pretty much, you know, the same when it comes to how fast they open things up and your animations and stuff like that. They're pretty smooth, so that is a really good thing. But like I said, we'll go a little bit more into detail here. But as far as your general, like, you know, loading stuff up, it'll be perfectly fine. We actually have better settings on PUBG here. Our best settings are smooth extreme plus, so 90 frames, and it's able to play PUBG very well. But on the 14T Pro here, we actually do have 120 frames. So this phone would be more ideal for, you know, competitive gamers that play PUBG. But like I said, both phones do a good job. But you know, for the games that I would play, Call of Duty, Genshin, the 14T Pro does a really good job here. But like I said, they're both good for gaming. But as we can see, like that difference there, the 14T Pro is going to be the faster device for a game like PUBG. Got both speakers at max volume. We'll start with the S24. I actually think I like the sound a little bit more on the S24. And the bass sounds a lot more natural sounding. Yeah, it definitely sounds a lot more natural sounding. I personally think the speakers are a little bit better. What's interesting here is that they're both kind of like the same volume. They're just kind of tuned different. Both speakers aren't like kind of like crazy loud or anything like that. So yeah, so I think the S24 FE sounds a little bit more natural. All right, so let's talk about the cameras here. This is the most interesting part of this comparison. I was really curious about how these shots would come out. So I'll show you guys some side-by-side stills. Let's start with the specs first. On the S24, we do have the 50 megapixel standard, 8 megapixel telephoto, 3x optical. This can go up to 30 times. And then we also do have a 12 megapixel ultra wide. It can shoot in 8K 30. And then you also do have a 10 megapixel selfie that shoots in 4K 60. Now the 14T Pro has a 50 megapixel standard, 50 megapixel telephoto, 2.6 optical zoom, 12 megapixel ultra wide. You do have 8K 24 and 30 with a 32 megapixel selfie that can only shoot in 4K 30. So check out these side-by-side stills and video. Let me know what you guys think. I do want to touch on the fingerprint scanner. So S24, it does have the optical one, and it works really well. You know, it's very fast, and it's the same thing for the 14T Pro. They both have the optical one as well. It works really well. It's pretty fast as well too. And one thing that a lot of people sleep on is the 14T Pro has an IR blaster as well. So what that means is that it can control like your TVs and appliances and stuff like that. It's a very cool thing to have on your phone. I'm constantly always using the IR blaster. I use it so much that I don't even really use like real remotes anymore. So that's a very cool thing about the 14T Pro. And let's go ahead and finish this off with the battery life. So actually the battery life is pretty good on both of these phones here. I don't really have an issue with screen on time. Now the S24 FE, it has a smaller battery at 4700 milliamps, 25 watt charging. You do have wireless and reverse wireless charging as well. So the 14T Pro here has a 5000 milliamp hour battery, but you do have 120 watts on here. So being able to charge this phone with 120 watts is crazy. It charges extremely fast. And then you also do have 50 watt wireless charging. So it just overall has better charging specs than the S24 FE. Now, this phone does not have reverse wireless charging though. So that's, you know, one thing to note. But I would say I really like the battery experience on the 14T Pro. Now, this one doesn't come with the charger in the box, unfortunately. So are you going to spend that extra money for the charger? You know, it really comes down to you. But which phone would you guys choose based on the pros and cons of this comparison? Be sure to let me know, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.